Hello and welcome to Tantrum House Studio Awesome. I'm Katie.
And I'm Ryan, and today we're going to take a look at Endogenesis Beyond, an expansion to the game Endogenesis. We want to remind you that our Kickstarter previews are made possible in part by funding from our Kickstarter backers and by the publishers of this game. This is a preview prototype copy of the game, so let's take a look.
First, let's take a quick overview of the base game of Endogenesis. Players will build up a tableau of skill cards that are used to attack monsters and fellow players for rewards.
If a player is able to assemble 4 of the same skill in their tableau, they are then qualified for the matching class that gives a special ability. Of course, that all depends on if they're able to get the artifact card, Glyph of Ascension.
Skills can be upgraded according to the chart at the bottom of each card by placing shards on them. And then shards are one of those things that are gained by killing opponents and monsters.
Artifacts and skill cards form a single deck, and players draw 2 at the start of each turn. They will choose whether to play them or to discard them for energy tokens.
Energy tokens are one of those things that you have to choose what you're going to do with because you have to pay for them to use your skills, and that takes up a lot of your turn.
Another deck is the Realm of Wonder cards. These are special cards that can only be drawn in certain situations. They give a great one-time ability when discarded.
Now, if you've picked up on a saying that you kill off other players, don't worry. A player respawns after their death, so there's really no player elimination.
Ultimately, you are trying to collect 3 prisms. These are gained by killing off legendary monsters, which are harder to defeat than the regular monsters.
So now let's take a look at what this expansion adds to the base game.
Voltaic is an entirely new skill set that comes with its own tokens. They are charges that build up on cards and are used for different effects.
Augment cards are new to the expansion and are added to a skill to boost or change something about that card's abilities. Augment cards can usually make the attached skill more costly as far as energy goes, so there is a balance that you have to strike there.
There are also 2 new types of skill cards, Death Cry and Initiative skills. Both of these cards will be played face down in a new slot on the other side of your player board. When you first play these cards, you must pay the energy cost up front. Also, they don't count toward gaining a new class, and when used, they return to your hand.
Death Cry cards are like reaction cards, but they only activate when you die. You can trigger some pretty nasty effects for the player that killed you, or it can give you some really awesome rewards when you're starting over.
Initiative cards are played face down, but will flip face up at the start of your next turn, usually giving some healing or energy tokens. There are also a slew of new cards for each skill type and artifacts. The Realm of Chaos deck also gets a boost in this expansion. There are new monsters that deal with stored energy from the Voltaic skills. Distortions and events have a few more cards as well.
If you're wondering about the Realm of Wonder deck, it too has some new and exciting cards for you to explore. So this game has a lot of the new cards. Adding the new skill was an interesting thing. It adds the energy tokens that usually work best, of course, if you add it with other same skills so that they're all voltaic. But you can't. There are ways that you can use those energy charges even if you're doing something that's a little bit different. So you can usually there's some other way to use those energy tokens that still helps you out, even if you don't have other voltaic cards.
Yeah, I liked that there was different effects that happened with the charges. Sometimes the charges gave you additional damage as you gained them. Sometimes it was only when you got to a certain point and had to discharge that it had an effect. And it really shook up the new skill type well, and I thought that it was an excellent addition to the other skills in the game. It was the one that I really focused on when we played, and I won. So maybe you should get the expansion just so you can win more.
That's not necessarily true. But there is the added part with the death cry was interesting. So now it makes you a little less of a target when people are choosing how to, deal out these hit points to people. They might be worried about that face down card. Like, what are they going to do to me if I kill them off? Is it worth the extra shard I'm going to get if I have to deal with whatever damage they're dealing to me? And the initiative ones were interesting because they are some really good rewards on those, but you have to pay for them up front and then you have to wait a whole turn before you can get to them. And sometimes those effects, although would have been great on the turn that you laid the card down, they're not as great when they come around back to your initiative to flip over at the start of your next turn. So, because there's some that say, like, heal back half of your hit points. Well, in the meantime, somebody has killed me and I'm at full health. So, you have to be really accurate on your timing with those cards specifically.
Yeah, it definitely alters the strategy a little bit for when you do have those cards, because the game isn't played quite as the same as you would without them. So, but it doesn't completely change the game, and I think that's what you're really looking for in an expansion, is something that accentuates the base game and doesn't completely overhaul it. One of the nice elements of the expansion that I don't think we mentioned before is the Fragments of Knowledge, which is they added a new phase where you draw 3 cards from the knowledge deck, and you can choose one of those 3 cards by discarding 2 of the cards from your hand. And that kind of gives you another opportunity to really choose the cards that you're gaining instead of just that blind draw, so you can focus on that one skill type and get to your class type sooner.
Yeah, that is very nice because it does give you then that choice, not just random chance. And I agree with that. That it is something that it adds a little more strategy to your hand rather than just the randomness of it.
If this sounds of interest to you, and if you were interested in the original Endogenesis game, definitely check out this Kickstarter, Endogenesis Beyond by David Goh. It looks like something that you probably would enjoy. Sorry, can we do that again? I was licking my lips weirdly.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, I shouldn't do that.